Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, it's blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Good evening, Cavs fans. Well, I guess when you catch this, it'll actually be the morning, technically, but welcome to this week's edition of the Block the Shot to Stop, a Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. I'm Tim Daniel. Joining me this week is Kevin Lynch. Skylar Webker has the week off, so Kevin and I are going to knock this out. And Kevin, this is important because it's the first time you and I have done a pod together since Game 4 of the conference semifinals, which was the worst game of the series. So we have to get that bad taste out of our mouth together now. I hope you're ready.
I'm always ready, Tim. Let's talk some basketball.
Yeah, for sure. So we we are recording this right after Game 5, and we did see Oklahoma City take a 122-109 victory to take a 3-2 lead in the series over the Indiana Pacers. And Kev, it's interesting because you and I were kind of talking a little bit before we got on air, and I realistically thought the Pacers lost this game when they blew the lead in Game 4. I thought this was over because I thought that was Indiana's perfect opportunity to win this, and they let it slip away in the last couple of minutes. I thought they played well tonight. They definitely did some dumb things down the stretch, had some horrible turnovers, and you can't make those turnovers against a team like Oklahoma City, as you know. But at the same point, you can discredit all the things Indiana did wrong all you want. The real story is Jalen Williams. Are we able to put him in the superstar category after dropping a 40-point NBA Finals game?
He's close. I don't think he's there yet, only because you need a few more things on your resume before you go superstar, and like a championship would actually help. I think he ended up third team NBA, but that's the first time he's been an all NBA. This is the first year an all-star. So like, I would say a rising star, but probably a little bit more runway. I think he'll get there. It's nothing about his talent or anything. I just think, I think he's still like 22, 23 years old or something.
Yeah.
So he's just got a little bit of time. He keeps doing what he's doing. He's going to get there sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree with you. So my webcam light just went out. That was pretty cool. Because all my technology just seems to be falling apart on me this week. But yeah, so I'm with you. I feel like with him, just the talent level and what he's been able to do has been unbelievable. Like I said, third team All-NBA. He's definitely on the cusp. He's definitely on the way there. So I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like for him in the future, because he's certainly super dynamic, and the things he's able to bring to a team, just offensively and defensively, certainly just kind of bring everything to a whole nother level. Shea, obviously being Shea tonight, doing what he does, and then Lou Dort just completely taking Tyrese Halliburton out of the game. And I know that there was a conversation about Tyrese Halliburton being injured, which I think at this point everybody's injured, and there aren't going to be any Cavs fans that are going to feel bad about a Pacers player being hurt in the finals when they beat the Cavs. So, but Lou Dort just completely taking Halliburton out of the game was extremely impressive. This Thunder team is unreal.
Yeah, I mean, kind of as you alluded to, that really started the second half of Game 4, where, I mean, Lou Dort always plays incredible defense, but he was just on another level. The end of that Game 4, when the Thunder actually kind of pulled a Pacers and came back and rallied late. And a big part of that, I think Dort had like 5 points in that game, but he was as important as just about anybody. The way he really controlled the game defensively, and I mean, while he was great, I thought all of OKC's defense was really good for
sure.
Most of the game tonight. The Pacers got it going in the third quarter, but other than that, yeah, their defense was the defining characteristic at the end of Game 4 and really all night tonight.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. So we head Thursday to Indiana for Game 6. Do you think we'll be talking about a Game 7, or do you, Indiana's hard to pick against. They're hard
Before we get there, I wanted to ask you one thing about Game 5. The thing that I don't know if you noticed the same thing. Well, first I'll ask you if you noticed the same thing, and if you agree, then we'll kind of get into it. Those two teams looked so exhausted
Yes.
for the better part of the game tonight. And you saw there was a few individuals that played well and kind of dictated how the game went. And those were the guys who just seemed fit enough to play with high energy. You mentioned Jalen Williams. He was incredible. SGA was SGA. TJ McConnell was really the difference that got the Pacers back in the game. And then Siakam was really the other guy who was pretty consistent all night. But other than that, you saw that was as tired as two NBA teams I've seen in a long time. And I don't know I think the first half, I think a lot of the game, especially the first half, was really sloppy because of it. But I don't know what there is to be done. I mean, you can't really space out the games anymore. It's just a product of the fact that the playoffs are like a completely different game than the season, and they're so physical. And then the game today is so wide open with so much movement. I don't know how you keep these guys from being dog tired or getting hurt. I mean, it seemed like almost every guy that played in the game was limping around at some points. So I don't know. I guess so. In the vein of a question, did you see the same thing? And if so, have any ideas how maybe we could get a little bit, higher quality basketball in the playoffs consistently? I mean, this series has been really good. Don't get me wrong, but I've noticed this throughout the playoffs that there's a really important games or the players just don't seem fit enough to play at the highest level.
Well, it's the only professional sport that the playoffs are 2 months long. So that's the hard part.
Yeah.
And then you talk about, like you said, these games are so physical. They're called completely differently, officiating wise. That's the only thing I'll say about officiating. I'm not going to be that guy by any means. But yeah, I mean, you certainly see it, and it's just so much more dynamic, and everyone's kind of breaking down at this point because these teams have been together since the end of September, early October. That's what kind of makes this more impressive about OKC is Shea, actually for Andrew Nembhard too. These guys are in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still playing at a high level that they are right now. So yeah, man, I certainly see the same thing you do. I do think there's things that got to change. I am going to be 100% honest with you. And I know this is probably a conversation for another podcast. I am team 66 regular season games.
Mm-hmm.
I am all for it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I know the NBA will not do it because of the loss of revenue for 30 NBA teams, but I certainly think when it gets to this stretch, if you want to do all 7-game series, which you and I are kids in the 90s. We love 90s NBA basketball. I loved the first round being the best of 5. I would go back. If I were commissioner for a day, that would be the rule I would instill. But none of that's ever going to happen. And so how we can get this to get better, I don't know. Because like you said, today and game 6 are 3 days spaced out. So
yeah, you're right. It's a conversation for another podcast. I'll say the only thing, the idea I have that I think makes sense for everyone. I agree, somewhere 66 to 70 games. I think that's the right number. And you're right. Don't want to lose revenue. Why not just add 6 more teams? There's so much talent in the league.
Yeah.
And if you have 36 teams playing 66 games, I don't know what the math is, but I'm sure that probably equates to about the same total number of games, same total number of revenue. I understand you're splitting the revenue a little bit differently, but it's the same. You get the same money out of the TV contracts that you're putting the same amount of games on every night of the week. So I think there's something in that vein that could be done to make up for most of the lost revenue while also kind of making the game a little bit better by making it a little bit less condensed. But anyway, that's just what I saw. I mean, both these teams are so awesome and have played so awesome most of the playoffs. I was just a little bummed that it just seemed like they were trying as hard as they could, but just couldn't play at a high level. They couldn't literally had the energy to exert to play at a super high level for a lot of the game tonight. But other than that, to your question, if I had to guess, I would guess OKC wins a pretty tight game, single-digit game in Game 6. But this Pacers team is hard to kill. I mean, you saw tonight was the first time they've lost back-to-back games all playoffs. It's the first time they've been trailing in a series all playoffs. And and those guys play so hard, and they're going to get a lift from their home crowd. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Indiana force a Game 7.
Yeah, Pacers never say die is a real thing. It really is. All right, man. So let's do a little bit of Cavs and Nuggets here, and just so we can kind of go through and discuss a few things. Obviously we got through Game 5 there. So FanDuel has started planning ahead for the 2025-2026 NBA season, and they have listed their favorites to win that NBA championship, not as in this one that could be that will be decided this week, but next season's. And number one and the odds, of course, is Oklahoma City, who are a heavy favorite, and you understand why. Though when we do get to this down the year, I will have a big deep dive on why it's very difficult to pick a team to repeat, i.e. look at the Boston Celtics. But number two, and that by a very big margin, by the way, between 1 and 2, are our Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 850. Now, Kev, obviously we love to see this because we know we are Cavs fans. But I think the thing I really like about this is, and I don't know where you are at this mental state. I know we've obviously, we discussed the series. We went at it from every corner, every angle, but I'm at the point where, I don't know, maybe this is just the five stages of grief, but I'm at acceptance, I would say, where I do genuinely feel like this. And this is rewatching games and stuff like that. Honestly, man, I'm at the point where I've just accepted that the Cavs just picked the worst time to have their worst shooting stretch of the year. And even though I don't blame the injuries for why they lost, you can't tell me that it didn't play effect in how they played. And that's where I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to dive into being sourpuss, sour face, we lost, anything like that. But I think these are fair. I think this is kind of a really right idea. I still believe, and you've heard Zach Lowe talk about this, you've heard this go from a lot of different national media members. If I'm picking an Eastern Conference team the next 3 years, even with a trade we're going to talk about later in the show tonight, I still think I want to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. I still like their core, but I like everyone else's. And I think their roster really just needs a little changes around the edges. I don't think it needs a big revamp. And so I think if I'm picking an East team the next 3 or 4 years with the current state of where everything is, I'm picking the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I think there's a lot of reasons that these odds make sense. So I'll say the stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the Cavs, the fact that the West is so much more loaded makes it harder for anyone other than OKC to have good odds because there's just so many teams and so much talent out there. So it makes sense that OKC is the heavy favorite. And then I think 3 of the next 5 are in the East. If I'm remembering, I don't know if I'm remembering it. I think it makes sense that the Cavs are second in the leading East team. They have the most talent, the most healthy talents. Boston's obviously incredibly talented, but is going to be missing Tatum all next year. So it makes sense to me. The odds, I partially disagree with you about kind of the silver linings on the playoffs and the fact that they just played bad. I personally think they got punked. I think
they did.
I think
they absolutely did. Yeah.
I think Indiana put the pressure on them. And I think if the way those two teams played in that series and, were playing, I think if they played 10 times, Indiana beats them 9 times because they're just they're a better fit for the way the NBA playoffs are. I actually think the Cavs do need to make some change. I don't know what exactly those changes are, but I think, and we'll get into this more on a future podcast, but we can tease it here at least. I think the Cavs have way too many one-way players, meaning players that are very good on offense or very good on defense and average or below average the other way. You look at these teams left, many of their guys contribute. They excel on one end and they're good to above good on the other end. Or if they're a one-way player, they're one of the best one-way players in the game. Like Lou Dort is one of the best defenders in the game.
Right.
He actually contributes some on offense, more than you would think, but for the most part is a defensive specialist. So that's it. And the Cavs have to get more athletic. I
agree. Yeah, I agree.
These two teams left, and really the conference finals, those 4 teams were potentially the four most athletic teams in the NBA. With as physical as the playoffs are, as fast as everything is, like you have to be able to match it. You can't out scheme people in the playoffs if you're just not as athletic and not and aren't applying as much pressure to the other team. So I actually do think the Cavs need to make some roster adjustments to, frankly, be fine with losing a few more games in the regular season to be better positioned when it comes to the postseason. Because I watched these NBA finals, I watched the conference finals, and the way the Cavs were set up, I just don't think they compete in that environment against those teams.
So the way we've put it in text message terms, and I think what you're saying is completely fair, is we want the Cavs to have more, we won't use the actual term, we'll abbreviate this for the children listening with their families, MFers.
Yeah.
MFers.
Playoff dudes. That's an easy way to say it. Like guys who rise to the moment. I mean, you get some of the guys in this series. I mean, you mentioned Lou Dort, to Aaron Nesmith, Alex Caruso, when
he's not complaining.
Yeah. I mean, but these guys, they're not, for the most part, not going to win any awards in the regular season. You'll never see them in an all-star game. But they're some of the most consequential players in the postseason, determining success for their teams. So I don't know. I just think the Cavs need more playoff dudes and more athleticism overall. And like I said, more guys who are either elite on one end of the floor or can contribute at a pretty high level on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I just still really believe in this core, particularly. So with that being said, I know longtime Cavs media member Sam Amico put out today something that we all obviously expected, is that the plan is to keep the core four together and kind of build on their rotation. And the name that keeps coming up, and I know this breaks your heart to talk about, is Isaac Okoro. And it's the one that makes the most sense because of the fact that his $11 million contract next year is probably about the difference between Ty Jerome's current contract, the one he'll probably get here in a couple of weeks when they can put those out there. We don't have to go too deep dive into this, obviously, because we have a lot of conversation to go for that. But I think this, I think if I'm picking one guy who won't be on the roster next year, that's not like Amani Bates or Luke Travers, it's probably Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, it's a tough one because Isaac he's obviously been with the Cavs. Was it
2020?
Yeah. So 5 years now. He has the potential. He is the guy who has the best chance of being some of these guys that we mentioned in the finals, the Carusos and the Dorts and the Aaron Nesmiths. He has that same build. He has that same ability. He just can't seem to stay healthy, and B, I don't know if he's definitely not nearly as aggressive of a player as those are. But that's the Cavs basically need an Isaac Okoro that is more aggressive and assertive. And if Isaac Okoro is not going to give it to you, then you gotta get somebody that will. I don't know if he's the first guy I would, first move I would make, because if that's depending on what the return is, you're actually getting less athletic by trading Isaac Okoro. But I see the rationale behind it. You can only have so many, $10 million plus guys on your team, and if you have a guy who's going to be a bench, second, third, fourth guy off the bench or more, and making that much, you're kind of better off kind of rotating them out, or looking to kind of, change up that spot.
Yeah. So I'll ask you this, and then we'll kind of do a deep dive into the Orlando thing. If Orlando can get 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane, who I love Desmond Bane, can the Cavs get 1 for Isaac Okoro? I think Desmond Bane's obviously a significantly better offensive player.
Yeah.
But with what the market's going to be looking like in trades because of the apron stuff,
could they? Sure, but it's not going to be a good first rounder. You're not going to get a Wizards first unprotected.
No, not at all.
Or something like that. Could you get a first round pick that ends up being in the mid 20s? Sure. Because frankly, teams don't care about that pick very much.
Right.
So if that's if that's what it took to get the done, that's fine. Any move the Cavs make, if they're not dealing the big four, as Sam Amico alluded to, or the core four, and you're working around the edges, they should not be trading guys for draft picks. They should be trading them for other role players who fit the Cavs' needs more. So Isaac Okoro, it might be one of those, change of scenery trades where you trade him for someone who is also, pretty talented and has potential, but hasn't realized it in their current situation. So I think that would be the more likely outcome. I don't have any names or teams off the top of my head, but
I don't either.
Yeah.
Speaking of draft picks, I want to make sure I make mention. So the Cavs do have 2 next Thursday, which is day 2 of the draft. I don't know if I love the NBA doing 2 days of NBA draft, but I'll live with it. So I'll do a little bit of a breakdown next week of about 5 to 10 guys that I have for both those picks that we can discuss without doing a 3-hour podcast. I'll do my best to make it quick and thorough so you guys can know some of the names would potentially be on the board at that time, which means none of those guys will be on the board at that time because that's how this goes. So let's get to it. Obviously, the Orlando Magic yesterday make a huge trade for Desmond Bane for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope getting off that contract, Cole Anthony, and 4 first rounders. And this conversation has been the one that's come up a lot. We don't have to dive too deep into did they give up too much for him. I don't really care about that per se, because like you just said with the Isaac Okoro conversation, is those Orlando picks are going to be in the 20s for a long time. And even though the Phoenix pick is beautiful, I want to talk about this basketball-wise, on the court-wise, because that's what matters. And I absolutely love this basketball fit for Orlando. Now, I do not think that they are as good as the Cavs now. But I do think that if the Cavs so happen to have the 1 or 2 seed next year, that's not the perfect matchup for them in round 2. But also, I absolutely love the fit of Paolo, Bane, Franz. And if they could get a facilitating point guard, they're going to be pretty scary.
You took the words out of my mouth. That the problem is they don't have the one thing that's lacking is true playmaking to set up particularly Franz and Paolo to be able to penetrate and kick out to Bane for all those threes that he wants to shoot and everything. I don't know if as much as I like both players, I don't know if Suggs and Bane are a great fit together in a backcourt, because you're just not getting a lot of ball handling or playmaking out of those two, even though Bane did it a little bit more this year. And Orlando's problem in the past has been offense, and 3-point shooting has definitely been one of those problems, and Bane goes a long way to solving that for them. But they also don't have they haven't had a way to set up their guys. I mean, if you watch Paolo play, particularly in the playoffs, he's having to create completely on his own, and he's just not that type of player. He needs to kind of get to his spots and get set up, and then he can score like a machine. So yeah, that's I like all 4 players, and don't get me wrong, I think they'll be good, but I don't know how they fit with whoever the 5th guy is. Because conventional wisdom would say on one end, you probably want a center. You want some kind of rim protection, since, and you don't want Paolo banging inside with centers all season long. But then on the same time, if you play a center, then the playmaking is real and the ball handling is really, really tough for them. So you go the other way, you do, a playmaking point guard or something, then, you're going to be smaller. You're going to put your best player playing up a position. It would be the same position for the Cavs fans as if they did move Mobley to center full time, and see him getting banged around, for 35 minutes a game all season. Like, is he going to be able to withstand that? And I don't know. And Paolo is a big, tough dude, but he was injured a lot last year. And so I don't know. I like all 4 players. I think they're going to be crazy talented. I question the fit a little bit. And honestly, like, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe their next move is looking at trading Suggs for more of a true point guard.
Yes, I absolutely agree. So the reason I want to kind of talk about this related to the Cavs is I think this stops the Darius Garland to the Orlando Magic conversation, because at that point the financials are going to be nearly impossible at that point.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Everybody always says it's impossible because, like, I think the trade machine is a really cool and really terrible thing that's happened to NBA fandom. I've said this on the podcast before. Everybody said these aprons were going to kill trades, and deadline would be so boring. This past trade deadline, there were more trades than any time in NBA history. And so I just think if there's a will, there's a way. That you have to get more creative, include a third team, do this, do that. But I think that I don't know that I like this trade, but that rumored Suggs for Garland trade, I think you could still make that work one way or another if you wanted to.
I would legit hate that trade. And not just because I like Darius Garland. I do not want to I like Donovan Mitchell much better off the ball than.
Yeah, you're creating the same problem in Cleveland
Correct.
that I just talked about in Orlando. So
yeah, exactly. But I agree with you. Like, do I right now think Orlando is a potential home court advantage team in 25-26? Yes. Do I think they're a potential top 4 seed in the East with how wide open it's going to be with the Tatum and Lillard injuries? Yes. Mm-hmm. But they still are not a complete roster. You mentioned the center thing. You've lived in Chicago a long time. You've seen Wendell Carter. You know that this is probably what Wendell Carter is. There's no getting better than this.
Yeah.
And Orlando offensively, you talk about just like not having a facilitating point guard. Did you know the last time Orlando was not in the top 20 in offense, as in above the top 20, was Dwight Howard's last year?
That's a long time ago. Dwight Howard's getting in wrestling
big 3 fights,
big 3 fights here in Chicago. I had a friend I was hanging out with Saturday during the day that went to it.
Yeah, they're coming to Cincinnati in a couple of weeks, actually. Which I can't believe that arena is getting events. I don't know how people aren't revolting against that, especially when the 2 colleges have really nice arenas. Mm-hmm. But whatever, that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I think I like the move for Orlando. I like the roster as far as like the guys building around. And if I'm Memphis, you and I were texting about this earlier. I do think I lean into the conversation of like, okay, maybe I just build on draft capital. But that issue is, and you've heard a lot of people talk about this, I'm not saying any groundbreaking things here. Every team has a point guard at this point. Some teams have too many point guards. And before anyone comes into the comments and says anything, no, we don't want Ja Morant over Darius Garland. If Darius Garland's missing the first potential 15 games of the season worries you, you probably don't want Ja Morant on your roster, especially next to Donovan Mitchell. It's not a good fit. But I do think there are Memphis guys who could be interesting for the Cavs. And I don't know how deep you want to get into this because we have a whole offseason to discuss it. But you and I both mentioned off air, you mentioned Brandon Clark as a potential Cavs fit. Mm-hmm. I mentioned John Conchar as a shooter off the bench, especially if they are going to lose like a Sam Merrill. Mm-hmm. I think are 2 guys I could like there, but I'm trying to figure out what the best way I want to attack this, because I do think that there are Cavs fits potentially on Memphis. I obviously joked with you about trading for Jaren Jackson Jr. and just having Mobley be the full-time 5, which I know Memphis wouldn't do because they wouldn't want to get too good of players back if they were going to go that route. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Could you see Jarrett Allen best player on an NBA team? I don't think I could, even if we're like a tanking team. But with that being said, I think Memphis is just going to be in a really interesting dynamic here. And if I'm the Cavs, I'm for sure seeing, as far as like those 2 guys we mentioned, is there a fit we can make happen?
Yeah. So Memphis now becomes one of those teams, like more so than scouring the NBA and trying to find the perfect deal. I like to hone in on where are the three or four teams that have talent that fits on the Cavs and that might be doing something kind of crazy. And now it seems like Memphis is now on that boat. I've long pinpointed the Pelicans as the team, they're in disarray. They just fired their GM. It's always been a pretty poorly run organization.
Shout out David Griffin.
Yeah. And so but now Memphis is on that list. Memphis has a lot of good role players. The Cavs aren't trading for Jaren Jackson or John Morant, but there are a lot of really solid role players that could potentially help the Cavs. So they basically just become another team kind of on the target list. One of, I guess, maybe a handful that, might be fits for the Cavs for making a deal here this postseason or this offseason.
Yeah. And we talked about Brandon Clark has some MFer in him for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He could for sure be one of those guys. But yeah, I mean, obviously where Memphis goes from here is going to make things really interesting. And obviously the big domino that has to fall before we get into any of this is what's going to happen with Durant, which
is he that big a domino anymore?
I'm with you. Yes, I'm with you, but
he has 1 year left on his contract. He's 37 years old and he's had how many lower body injuries at this point. I love Kevin Durant, love watching him play. I think the game's passed him by a little bit between his aging, his injuries, and the fact that he just wants to play in the mid-range. And other than SGA, there really aren't that many other stars that play in the mid-range nowadays.
I agree with you.
So I don't know. Could he go to a team and be a difference as their second or third scorer? Of course, if the Spurs got him or something, but I don't think he's as big a fish. I think the return's going to be way lower than a lot of people would assume it'll be.
See, I agree with you. But the national media pundits, of course, are making it sound like it's you're trading for.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's the top 20 player in NBA history.
For sure.
He's going to make news for sure.
Yeah, they're trading for Golden State Kevin Durant, and that's not who you're getting at this point.
Right.
Now I'm with you. I love KD. Absolutely love KD. But yeah, man, I think it's a lot of interesting things are going to happen. I don't know, Boston's going to try to shop those Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis contracts. I don't know what the return they're going to get there is going to be exciting either. And I love Drew Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
But Cleveland's going to have I think if everything goes right, a really good opportunity to have the 1 seed in the East again, even if they don't win 64 games, even if they win 57 games, which I think is very well in the ballpark for next year, and probably what they should aim for instead of I thought they did a really good job handling everything in the regular season, obviously, but there's going to definitely be a different dynamic to that. And I think all the reports you're seeing is Kenny Atkinson has already been looking at next year and watching all the film possible. So I'm itching for Cavs basketball again, Kevin. I really miss it.
I am too. And I think, a lot of it seems like logical wisdom would say they played it perfectly in the regular season, but then come the playoffs, they were they're broken down. They got guys missing games and they frankly didn't seem prepared for the intensity of a second round playoff matchup. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Cavs they're in the best position of any team in the East. I completely agree with that. They have the most talent locked up for a long time, whether they keep that talent together or trade it for other talents, so I do think they're in the best position, but some things need to change from last year to expect a different result. This is 3 years now. I know it was Kenny's first year, but with the same core where, each year it seems like the playoffs ended a little bit sour, just like this year, especially, but even the previous couple of years, it seemed like they underachieved a little bit, even if it was making a series more competitive than it was. So yeah, I mean, I think, we all know the definition of insanity. So I do think there is some logic behind at least changing things up a little bit.
Yeah, you can get playoff guys without having to get Marcus Morris back, which, please, for the love of God, don't get Marcus Morris back.
Yeah. but the only problem is, and this is from the Cavs message boards, and I love Cavs fans, and a lot of them are really good to chat with. But
it's a great fan base.
Yeah, it is a great fan base. But a lot of guys, they want, or a lot of or not some fans, not a lot. They expect to get a really good player back without trading anyone. They're maybe willing to trade Imani Bates for Trey Murphy.
Wait, you don't think New Orleans will do that deal?
And so I'm kind of if you're going to change it, if you're going to seriously improve this roster and rotation, it's going to come from trading one or more of your talented guys. And so you kind of can't have your cake and eat it too, kind of thing.
Yeah, I got multiple text messages on if it was possible when Simmons floated that LeBron for DeAndre Hunter and Jared Allen trade. Do you think the Cavs would do this? One, yes. Is it possible? No. Doesn't make it would be a lot more than that to make it happen. And honestly, I think we can just kind of all move on because he's not gonna wrap his career here. As much as I would love to see him have one more run in the wine and gold, it's just not going to happen.
And LeBron is my favorite athlete of all time, but you watch this NBA Finals in this playoffs. He is as athletic of a freak, and I mean that in the best way as you'll ever see. But also, I don't know if you could realistically see him playing in 25 of these type of playoff games and stay healthy and be productive. I mean, I think that's a lot to ask of a 40-year-old guy.
Yeah, it's literally the same conversation you just had about Durant. Even though I don't think the game has passed LeBron up the way it has Durant, it's just a lot to ask of guys at that age to play this many minutes. So
yeah,
I agree with you.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, man, anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Just one quick thing I should have said at the top of the show, but Monday night, and I haven't even told you this is news to you, but Monday night next week, so June 23rd, I'll put it out on our socials. I got asked to be, I guess, on the stage, one of the presenters of the guys at Playback the Land are going to do a viewing of Believe Land and invite all Cavs Cleveland fans to kind of watch it together and kind of reminisce about a lot of different Cleveland sports teams that are covered in that, but most significantly the 2016 Cavs, who obviously, if people know this, the documentary was done and it was kind of a sad thing, and they actually had to go back and finish it after the Cavs won the 16 championship. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'll put it on the socials ahead of time, and anybody wants to click in, it's free. You come in, you hang out, you get in the chat, and just kind of talk to other Cleveland sports fans and a lot of Cavs fans in particular. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And that's something I told them we might rip off. Maybe we'll do a documentary review of Believe Land at some point.
Yeah. So Cleveland sports fans, not just talking to Cavs fans here. If you want somewhere where you don't have to hear about Shedeur Sanders for 25 minutes, go hang out with Kev in the land, and the guys in the land and the Playback next week. Yes. So
yeah, there will be no Shedeur talk.
Yeah. There probably will be, just not from you. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, we're going to go and wrap this up. So like I said, we have that going on. I've been putting my big board together of the draft guys for the Cavs. If they don't trade these picks before next week, I wouldn't be shocked if they do, and somehow, but we shall see. But we'll be back for next Tuesday again. Thank you all so much for spending some time with us as always. We're missing Cavs basketball as much as you guys are. We're counting the days. But on behalf of Kevin Lynch and Skylar Webker, I'm Tim Daniel. Please be sure to give us a subscription, hit the notification button, and leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. With that being said, have a great evening, and of course,
go Cavs.